What's up, everyone? It's the Autistic Scyther here, and this is part 2 of Top 10 Most Disturbing Characters in Video Games. For those that want to see part 1 and wonder what part 1 is, and it's already up on my channel, so I suggest before watching this, you watch that video to see numbers 10 through 6 before coming back to see the remaining 5. Now, for those that have already seen that video, without further ado, let's get back into it. Moving on next to number 5, we have the Eggplant Wizard and the Tempura Wizard from Kid Icarus and Kid Icarus Uprising. Yeah, kinda knew this one would be here, surprisingly enough. And surprisingly enough, the Eggplant Wizard honestly seems a little weird and off-putting to most people. I mean, heck, Kid Icarus has been a game that has been around since the 1980s, way before I was born. So, that being said, for most people that have played it, they know about the Eggplant Wizard's usual stuff. And the Eggplant Wizard, for those that don't know, the Eggplant Wizard is basically a wizard with an eggplant for a head. And as you'd expect, he mostly utilizes magic to basically affect Pit in different ways. The only notable way is turning Pit into an eggplant. Meaning, of course, whenever Pit gets turned into an eggplant, he had to stop by a hospital in order to get turned back into an angel. That's pretty weird. But of course, when Kid Icarus Uprising was released, yep, you knew he'd make a return. And honestly, this time without the hospital to be seen, if you get turned into an eggplant, the only way you had to basically deal with this turning back into an angel is basically taking a dip in a hot spring. And that's really saying a lot once you consider he's one of the weirder members of the Underworld Army. Well, aside from the Reapers and the Orns. Yeah. However, if you already hadn't guessed, it's both the Eggplant Wizard and the Tempura Wizard. And it's that self-same Tempura Wizard that basically puts these two ahead of the game. Now, for the Tempura Wizard, he's basically a wizard with tempura shrimp as a head. And yeah, basically, he's more or less able to sling his magic towards Pit in hopes of turning him into tempura shrimp. And if that's not all, once he does so, he'll run after Pit in order to eat him. Yeesh! Yeah, this is one of the scariest things ever, and honestly, while I haven't come across that myself, even though I've played the game, that could scare anyone. That's all I can say. Yeesh. Moving on next at number 4, we have Eddie Lowe from Grand Theft Auto 4. Oh boy, we're getting into some dark territory here. Yeah, for Eddie, when it comes down to it, Eddie is for anyone who's played through Grand Theft Auto 4 and listened to the radio, they've heard some forms of news bulletins about a serial killer around the island of Alderney, based on New Jersey. Anyway, that being said, if you're like me, yeah, there's a good chance you possibly wouldn't think that much of it. However, once you get onto Alderney for the first time, you'll soon see what they mean. Because, surprisingly enough, he is one of the more creepiest side characters you ever come across. That being said, when you first meet Eddie Lowe, he basically shows up with a duffel bag and asks you for a ride to the pier. Of course, that being said, being the Good Samaritan you are, you more or less have to take him to the pier. And he shows some kind of an interesting love of corpses. In fact, once you get to the pier, he basically exits and more or less tells you that he'll be right back, and he's gotta drop off the kids at the pool. Yeah, if you hadn't already guessed, this is not a normal thing. It is a standard body dump. And basically, when he gets back in, afterwards he gets back in like nothing happened and asks you to bring him home. Yeah. You think this would be your last time coming across him in this sort of context, right? Wrong. Because soon afterwards, you've seen him in an Alderney suburb, and let's just say this time he's letting his urges get the better of him. And he's dead set on making Nico his next victim. That being said, you more or less have to outplay him and just more or less take care of him by, of course, killing him. And in order to basically end his urges for good. Of course, that being said, it would mention that Eddie Lowe's reign has more or less been... Bulletins have been mentioned that Eddie Lowe's reign has more or less been quelled. But yeah, it's pretty chilling to say the least. Not only that, this isn't a one-time thing that Eddie Lowe has had these urges. As basically, in Red Dead Redemption 2, we end up meeting his ancestor, Edmund Lowe, who has the same sort of urges as him. Rockstar? Is there something you want to tell us? 'Cause, we're here to help. Moving on next at number 3, we have Hisako from Killer Instinct 2013. Alright, now to be honest, I have never played Killer Instinct 2013. In fact, the most I've played of Killer Instinct was more or less the version of Killer Instinct from the SNES entries. And as far as I know, Killer Instinct was basically what, I as a kid would have more or less thought was cool back when I was growing up. Which really says a lot. Like skeletons, pirates, robots, dinosaurs, hot chicks, ninjas, that sort of thing. And surprisingly enough, Hisako, for the time, is literally based on something that was popular back during the 2000s. More or less being based on Sadako from the Japanese movie Ringu, or as most of us here in the West would know her as, Samara Morgan from The Ring. And honestly, this one kind of makes sense, since Hisako was once the daughter of a samurai who died in a bandit attack. And of course, her village basically set up a memorial more or less honoring her life. However, after Ultra Kill, disturbed it, she more or less came back as an Onryo, or a vengeful Japanese spirit, in order to get revenge on those who would disturb her final resting place. And no hate on Hisako though, but the reason why she's on this list is jump scares. Honestly, I cannot handle jump scares. And basically, whenever I see things involving Killer Instinct 2013, the ones that would end up scaring me are those when Hisako would show up, like, flat out jump scare me. This is why it's gonna take me a while to play through Killer Instinct 2013. Possibly to handle my ability to handle jump scares. Moving on next, at number 2, we have the Happy Mask Salesman from Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. Yup, kinda knew a Zelda title would show up, Zelda character would show up on this list. And knowing the Zelda franchise, yeah, there are a lot of interesting characters that honestly could be on any list. However, that being said, it's very fair to say that if it's a creepy character on this list, there is no character creepier than the Happy Mask Salesman from Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. First things first, we don't know where this guy has come from. And in fact, nowhere in the game is this mentioned. But of course, he seems to know everything that's happened. Because when Link ends up getting turned into a Deku Scrub by the Skull Kid, basically, he knows what happened with Link, and he basically is there to say, You've come upon a terrible fate, haven't you? And honestly, it's kind of unsettling. But what's really unsettling is after you get the ocarina back from Skull Kid, and you're able to get back your human form, yeah, he more or less asks if you got back the Majora's Mask from Skull Kid. And honestly, if you haven't gotten the mask back at all, yeah, things get a little unsettling to say the least. And this is saying a lot considering he throttles Link as a result before freaking out. Yeah, I mean, granted I know he helps you out, but still, that entire outburst kind of freaks the ever-living out of me. And this isn't the only time we see this, as he makes an appearance in Ocarina of Time, this time as a mask seller. And if you don't get his money, yeah, prepare for some unpleasantness. I don't even want to think about that. Eesh. Finally, at number 1, we have Suguru Kamoshida from Persona 5. Yeah, honestly, you knew this was coming. I mean, to be honest, we knew this guy was gonna show up. I mean, I haven't played Persona 5, I knew he was gonna be mentioned. I mean, he's a gym teacher who more or less pushes around his students because he treats the entire school like his own castle, almost like he believes the world owes him, to the point that he even coerces Ann into an uncomfortable situation that she's not ready for. And his palace is just, it's just all sorts of messed up. Yeah, honestly, I don't think I can say any more about this. Just, if you want to see this, just go play Persona 5. Just go play Persona 5. That's all I gotta say. That's really all I gotta say. Those are all of the top 10 most disturbing characters in video games. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you next time.